Hello, anybody who's watching this. Welcome to my reaction to single-handedly taking on the Yakuza. I think that's how you pronounce it. Tales from the Bottle by Yakuza. This was recommended, as many others, by Tom Vinton, so thank you. And the only thing I know, not the only thing I know about Yakuza, but is that like it's a Japanese mafia that lives in Japan, does its business in Japan. But I don't know if they're still around. I know that tattoos in Japan have been frowned upon because uh, pe people with tattoos mainly work for Yakuza. I heard that from someone, I don't remember. And yes, if you want to be like Tom, you can recommend me a video using my donation link in the description below, and I'll react to your video as soon as I can. And let's start. Sure.
This video is sponsored by Dashlane. Throughout the course of making this series, I've come to the conclusion that America is crazy. Most of the bonkers shit in these stories seems to happen in either medieval Europe or modern day America. It's getting to the point where I think we should just go ahead and section off the whole country as a live action roleplay zone. But today I think America has met its match. This episode takes place in Japan, and despite this only being the second Japanese story, I think the combined strangeness of the two stories might put them ahead of every other country so far. The bizarre nature of this story means it's going to take a number of twists and turns, and things that are seemingly unrelated will be brought up, but I promise you I'm not going off track, and it all comes together by the end. Our tale begins in 1971 with 24-year-old Mitsuyasu Meno. A couple of interesting things about Meno. One, he was an amateur pilot, and two, he was an actor. Although after he had difficulty getting work in film, he turned to porn. He even brought the two interests together in one movie by flying a plane while fucking someone. Or fucking someone while flying a plane. I'm not sure which of those two takes greater precedence.
Literally while flying, not just on the plane? That's multitasking.
Meno was also into a bit of the old ultra-nationalism. He was part of a post-wartime collection of right-wingers who idolized the samurai code of honor and wished to return Japan to its imperialist policies. I'm sure the US would have been all too happy to oblige them in that. It was at a meeting of ultranationalists where Mitsuyasu Meno met the 60-year-old right-wing leader Yoshio Kodama and came to admire him. Now, Kodama was quite an interesting person himself, one of the most important power brokers in Japan in the 20th century. He was a prominent figure in the resurgence of the Yakuza, as well as an influential political player. He was arrested in 1932 for his plots to assassinate Japanese politicians with his ultranationalist gang. During World War II, he assisted the Japanese government in smuggling supplies out of continental Asia and into Japan via his vast network of contacts. In this time frame, he became one of the richest men in Asia. After the war, the US imprisoned Kodama as a suspected war criminal, although they later negotiated his release in exchange for his help in rooting out communist activity in Asia. During this time, he worked with the CIA on various jobs, smuggling and breaking up labor movements and the like. He was also still at work in the criminal underworld, brokering peace between gangs and uniting the Yakuza. He was a big fish, is what I'm trying to say. Alright, now brace yourself for narrative whiplash as I'm about to start talking about Lockheed Martin. You all know Lockheed, right? They're one of the largest US corporations in aerospace and defense. They make jets and bombs and missiles, satellites, and all kinds of shit. Basically, if you've had the misfortune of being born in this general part of the world, you've probably lived in fear of Lockheed. In the 70s, it was revealed that Lockheed had been involved in a bribery scandal spanning over a decade. They had been spending millions of dollars in bribes to officials all around the world in a bid to sell their aircraft. Officials in Italy, Germany, the US, and many more had been accepting money from Lockheed to persuade their respective governments to bolster their air force with the purchase of Lockheed jets. These officials ranged from government ministers to members of royal families and even influential gangsters and mob bosses. This all sounds like something you'd see posted to a worryingly popular Facebook page alongside articles that claim the Illuminati control the world and weed cures cancer. But it is actually true, this all really happened, and you can look it up. And Japan was one of the countries that Lockheed had in their pocket, as well as bribing many government.
As soon as I locked my eyes with that image, I knew what phrase he's gonna say. Why? Why do you do that?
Officials, Lockheed employed Yoshio
Could have been
Kodama as
just
a
a metaphor.
consultant so that he could use his vast influence to have a Japanese airline buy the Lockheed
It's fine, yeah, I guess that's fine.
L1011 TriStar instead of the competing McDonnell Douglas DC-10. And they did. And you know, for an ultra-nationalist, this Kodama guy sure was involved in a lot of foreign meddling in national affairs. Especially the US. You'd think he'd fucking hate those guys.
Yeah?
But I suppose he was just an especially tolerant type of ultra-nationalist. In 1976, the scandal came out. The Japanese Prime Minister was arrested and the country was outraged. Especially outraged was Mitsuyasu Meino, our porn star pilot friend from earlier. Having formerly admired the right-wing leader Kodama, Meino was disgusted at his dealings with the foreigners. In his eyes, Kodama had betrayed his ultra-nationalist beliefs and broken the samurai code. You wouldn't think an adult film star would hold such deep-seated conservative views. These two certainly make an odd pair of right-wing extremists. But nevertheless, an extremist he was, and he swore to make an example of the treacherous Yoshio Kodama. This pledge obviously puts Meino himself in more danger than it does Kodama. Kodama was a don of the Yakuza, he had allies all over the country, and he had an ocean of money.
Quality drawings, just most... I'm not like judging them, it's just funny that like a lot of texture went into him, less here, and then it's less, and just face, and the tip of the gun is just barely a face. It's great.
Money. He was probably one of the most powerful men in the country, and certainly one of the most unfuckwithable. On the 23rd of March 1976,
maybe not for a porn star,
Mitsuyasu Meino arrived at an airport in Tokyo with two friends. All three were dressed as World War II pilots, and they posed as a film crew renting out two planes to shoot a segment for a movie. There's even a couple of pictures of Meino posing beside his plane before they took off. Meino piloted one plane and his two friends occupied the other, one to fly and one to use the camera. They flew around Tokyo for about an hour before Meino said he had business elsewhere. He flew off in a direction and his friends followed him. They were curious what he was doing, but Meino stopped responding as he began circling low in his plane. Then he broke his silence with a cry of "Long live the Emperor!" before diving his plane towards the ground below. He crashed into Yoshio Kodama's Tokyo house, which then caught fire. Kodama's Yakuza bodyguards rushed to put out the fire, and two of his servants were injured in the attack, but Kodama himself was unharmed and carried outside. Mitsuyasu Meino died in the crash. The Japanese Prime Minister and Kodama were both put on trial for their involvement in the scandal, but the trial stretched on for years. Kodama died of a stroke in his sleep in 1984 before a verdict was reached, and the Prime Minister was sentenced to 4 years but remained free on appeal until he died in 1993. Officials who had worked with the gangster Kodama were never revealed, and Lockheed Martin is still a multi-billion-dollar company. So really, there's no justice in the world. You might grieve how unfair it all is, but for a short time at least we can amuse ourselves with the story of a porn star flying a kamikaze mission into a Yakuza Don's house over an aerospace corporation bribery scandal. And also follow me on Twitter. And if you too are afraid of your secret dealings with the CIA and arms dealers being discovered and having someone crash a plane into your house, then I have the all-encompassing solution to your oddly specific set of dilemmas. Dashlane didn't exist in 1976, but if it did, Yoshio Kodama would have been laughing. Dashlane boasts two main features, convenience and security. It saves all your passwords for every website, and it doesn't matter if you're traveling or switching devices. It just works.
I'm not kidding.
But it also goes a step further in password management, allowing you to generate complex secure passwords and then saving them so you don't even have to remember them. And the best part is the passwords are all saved and encrypted locally, so even if the Dashlane website is compromised, your stuff is...
Sponsor me, Dashlane. I wouldn't mind using your product, but... And there's some... I think there's a free version and not free version. I definitely don't have funds to use not free version. I don't know how limiting is a free one. Anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, I thought when it showed 3 of them, like the porn star and his 2 friends for a shoot, I don't know. when it showed that, I thought all three of them are gonna take the planes and then go. But I guess he didn't tell anybody about his plans. Which is odd, but okay. Too bad his attack failed. He just died for nothing. I guess a lot of kamikaze pilots died for nothing because in the end Japan lost the war. Kind of won in the long run because look at Japan now, but lost the war. That's the main thing. Anyway, thank you anybody who watched this, and thank you Tom Vinton for recommending this. And I hope to see everybody next time. Goodbye. Have a great life because at least one of us has to.